Warm welcome to you. Good evening to everybody. Great that you're all here, and great that you're all in station. And thank you for all thinking. I invite you to think about this. I'm really thankful for the talk about, for the topic of Republica this year, about caring and who cares and how it pays off to be a carer in our society. And especially 2024, it's so important to think about what impulse, if we take caring seriously, what impulse we then need. And this in this washing machine time, in all these times of insecurity, and nobody knows where it's going and who's going where, there's two prototypical reactions. One is, I put it in the title, is, then I'll care about myself, and that's me and mine, and we, and everybody else is sort of an irritation, and so people are doing things differently, and I'll seek things and doing things differently, and in my own humble abode, and I've. This is a natural impulse. So if you slept badly, to say, get off everybody. But we also have the other possibility inside of us, and can ask ourselves which possibility to feed. The other possibility is taking a step back and having a look what's happening, and asking myself what it's all about, and thinking about how to do things differently with new ideas and finding stability. And the most important message is that only happens in the plural in our society. So I looked at a topic and a phrase in psychology to sociology, and that the term of coherence. This coherence has two aspects. One is that we understand what it's about, and the the relationship between cause and effect, finding out who brings which information in, and finding out what outcomes this has. And the other topic is the effectiveness. Do I have access to effective activities? Do I get the idea of what could be, what could happen, and do I get the gratification for this? And then there's the purpose, the sense. Does it make? Is it rewarding? And that's where we have to really take care. Is like the lost in ego-fixation means that nobody else is helping me, nobody is working with me. It wasn't, in the beginning, nobody was joining me, and then it was too late. And where's the middle ground? How do we? In these topics, we try to engage with this purpose, and then we try to answer this from the complex systems, and everything that we want to do is part of a future development. If don't know if we're on the path to 1.5 degrees, but if we don't try it, we're not going to be there. If we don't invest money into digitalization to make care work easier, if we don't try it, it won't be part of the solution. And this is why caring is so great as an access to a coherent experience. I'll had a look about what is it, where does it comes from. There's three typical aspects that care is associated with. It's defined with the process of protecting something or someone and providing what that person or thing needs. This is readiness to not only me, and to me, so seeing around who else. And that's the nice thing is that others also carry the idea of, if they carry the idea of care in themselves, they'll also look out for me. This means that it's an attitude question, and you can routinize this, or The second serious ascension, especially the details of a situation or thing. let's take a step back and ask ourselves, have we understood this, and are we searching on the right point for solutions? And this and the last one is caring as a feeling of worry or anxiety. And I think in the moment we're giving a lot of focus on the third point, and that we can see this in the studies, the state of the nation, more in common study. The state of the nation is, a lot of people are scared and are afraid about people thinking more and more egoistic, that checking out, and that people are wondering more and more about the connection in the country, and they are in these.
And the question is whether people think about the cohesion, social cohesion of the country. So we see here there are 6 different groups: the open ones, the involved ones, the established, the pragmatic, the disappointed, and the angry. And the trend is clear across all of these parts of society. The worry is there in society. People are worried about a growing egotism in society, and we have a chance to reduce this worry. But the issue today is that for the people that are actually caring today, it doesn't actually pay off. Or rather, they're almost being punished for it. And these are the structural drivers that make it hard for us to decide for care. But that is also something that we together can change, because there isn't always a push towards ego-fixation or to being checked out. So I brought a few ideas, and let's start maybe by looking at whether we found the right descriptions, the right terms for what we're talking about. So the point with the series, attention on what we're talking about and where we're going and what the possibilities are. And that's important because caring begins with the careful attention to the situation or things at stake. So we see a lot of election posters out, and there's a lot of stuff going on in public media. There's one story that's very widely known, referring to the promise of a safety zone where we get away from this insecurity, and that is prosperity. So there's prosperity, there's security or safety as a second coordinate, target coordinate, and they're usually kind of thought together. But we don't really think about what we strive for as this promise of prosperity and where we get there. And is that a way to get out of the crisis we're in, or is it an issue in itself? Because then we get to this here, where I assume that in their quest for prosperity, everybody always wants more, so I worry about falling behind. And so I wonder, is that really the formula that would give us the possibility today, and I get back to that, to take much more care about the things that are important for human life on this planet? If I worry that my house isn't as big, my car isn't as big, my vacation isn't as fancy, that I'm just somehow not wealthy, not prosperous. And then the next thing is that I'm being rewarded for that by the magazines, by likes, by the narrative who's successful and who isn't. And it's being rewarded to contribute as little as possible, that others maybe are going to be as well off as I am. So I looked at analyses of wealth advisory companies because I wanted to figure out how they develop their perspectives of the world and what their definitions of desirable prosperity are. And also how to define the situation where you can grow prosperity globally. And it's always about the financial value of the things that I own. And their conclusion was that high net worth individuals that have more than 200 million of liquid capital to invest used to be able to grow their capital over the last several years. And there was a little bit of a step down in 2018 and then again in 2022. And this trend that used to go up rather quickly suddenly inflected. And nobody asked to figure out why this is actually relevant and who benefits. And there is this great pyramid for those people that have, I don't know, only a few 100,000 and a few millions, a few tens of millions, hundreds of millions, and how they are distributed within the ranking. And this is very stressful. This is a narrative that maybe doesn't actually fit into the narrative of caring. Where do I belong? Where do the crises come from? How can I contribute? But instead, what is valued is if I can somehow accrue financial capital, then that is what is being called a success in the media. So I looked at studies from the Hans Böckler Stiftung, Hans Böckler Foundation, who looked at the distribution of wealth. And then we can also see the structural drivers behind this idea of prosperity and growth continue onwards. So the logical behavior, once I have financial capital, is being normalized. Reducing taxes, the taxes on capital gains going down to 30%. Then 83% of billionaire assets are still controlled by men. That's also normal and just kind of goes on this way. Germany's billionaires are usually of West German origin. There is not a single East German billionaire entrepreneur family. So this normalization of prosperity and of wealth maybe has something to do with the feeling that not everybody cares about how we as a society can grow and prosper. There's 95 food and energy companies worldwide that have more than doubled their profits in 2022, in a year where lots of people were actually worried to pay their energy costs and rent in the middle of a financial crisis, and where the financial crisis has always been played off against the ecological crisis. So how is it even a good idea of prosperity and wealth if these companies reap never seen before windfall profits? $306 billion, of which 84% were distributed back to shareholders, not used to improve our energy systems or sustainability, but instead to shareholders so they can grow their capital and wealth. And in Germany from 2020 to 2021, the wealthiest 1% owned 81% of wealth growth. Finally, the tendency to tax evasion is by far the highest within the super rich compared to other income groups. And while we're discussing about social security payments, there's hundreds of billions of euros every year that are being taxed either somewhere else or not taxed at all, that are just plainly evaded. So there's a lot of insecurity about who cares. And if we follow these values, the influence of the people who don't care for social prosperity will continue growing, and this will perpetuate itself. So aside from wealth in terms of financial wealth, what about caring as a security of supply? Then I can look at prosperity and wealth as something that can still grow, but also do a lot of things that would be important to do quickly today, so everybody is being taken care of. So taking this perspective of caring and turning it into a perspective of caring as a security or safety of supply would maybe bring us to an environment where we can actually feel good and feel safe. So it's important to think about what the central drivers are. We looked at the relevant parts of the systemic issues. There's obviously
how do we talk about the security of supply? We don't ask about how do you feel secure that you're supplied enough. But the security of supply is also the thought of wealth and prosperity is the idea that everybody is getting more prosperous. So that also means that the energy consumption is also getting up and up and up. And this security of supply and this benchmark needs to be as much as last year. So the baseline is growing every year. And that's one of the biggest sustainability lies is that we were sustainable if we have as much as last year, and instead of asking ourselves under which conditions can we give people according to their needs, and the energy supply, how can that be assured? How much? The question is, how much may technology, for example, use? So the energy slaves is a topic that Buckminster Fuller brought on. So people who have access to energy might be, if we would want to control things by price, the question is, what are we using in the background? So, this is a great comic by Buckminster Fuller. So we've normalized that our energy footprint has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger in the last 10 years because many machines are doing things in the background that we used to fulfill with manual labor decades ago. So. More and more energy is used, and we're never talking about this. But this steady increase of rapid increase of consumption has consequences for our sustainability and our security of supply. So, what kind of supply am I looking at, and security of supply am I looking at, and that's what the planetary boundaries are about. The best solutions need to be where we can tackle multiple supply problems or risks at once, and there's biodiversity goals as one. After the European elections, there's going to be a super important topic about biodiversity and land use. So if wealth isn't measured in a way that takes this into account, this is not a metric under which we should measure our wealth. So. How to
So it's important to see this as a performance of an ecological system, not just providing, but also in a way that is sustainable. Either recollected, reprocessed, the CO2, the microbes, the processed biomass, all these things that are completely invisible and also unpaid. And that's usually beyond the sphere of attention between beyond the sphere of attention. And that's why it's so important. How do we develop caring as the idea and the terms that we use, and shift them so it gives more attention to the things that we actually want as a society. So instead of going for financial wealth, we should try to figure out how humans and technology and nature can somehow get into coexistence. And we're losing track of that, where ecological sustainability and survivability is treated as a cost factor. And then, of course, we have a gender gap here with the global distribution of male versus female caregivers. And we also need to talk about fair wages. And there's a lot of conversations that we had in the pandemic years that didn't make it into actual implemented policy. And what you can see here is the average salary in care jobs, and the one outlier here is medical doctors, and everybody else is the actual caretakers, and they're being generally underpaid. So if the society is only going to celebrate me if I make a ton of money, then I need to choose jobs that pay a lot of money, and those are not care jobs. And this goes beyond even the salaries. It's also about societal reputation. Like, doctors are being very highly regarded and highly paid. Lots of others that do a lot of very important work are not, and they're almost basically unseen. So we finally have a debate where we talk about skilled labor or unskilled labor, and a lot of things are just taken for granted. Caregivers are like background noise, whereas technologists coming here, maybe residing here for a year or two, will get tax breaks. So everything else being treated as infrastructure that just has to work. And this means we lose something very, very important. And that is a society that can actually stick together in times of crisis. So how do we look at growing productivity? Growing productivity and getting women into the into employment to grow our wealth, it's a big thing. But this actually translates to a lot of stress for the people that actually have to perform this labor. Because for some, especially in care work, there is a certain rhythm you cannot go beyond, because then the results don't become better. It's just more stressful and more dangerous to everyone involved. But this is how we currently grow this productivity. So currently we have caretaking jobs at the limit. If you think of public health, and we have an issue that we don't actually value or even measure all these jobs.
I would like to know who wants to declare the recipe for success in a society that both parts of both parents do the care job at work, and who has no energy after 8 hours of work, and who wants that declare that as a successful society. That's why we want to think about how to describe this. How do we get into the experience of coherence? So we need to understand what the question is, so the question was even before the crisis very porous, and now it's just breaking apart. So this systematical thinking is very, very important, because there's one component missing in all these graphics, and this is the ecosystem. That everybody's operating with each other, but where the resources should come from, and whether we build them up or break them down is missing from these graphics. So I like this graphic, which is from the dive, and so the question is, how do we get into the regenerative, how to understand the ecosystem as something alive, and getting into a rhythm and understanding each other. And it's much better than a design principle where you can move on and on. So caring as a design for live systems. And that's how we can contribute to a system that where we can sit down and ask whether have we found the right description, how can I inform the others, how can we improve. Creation of wealth is one of the important KPIs.
And again, we're talking about finances. But what about KPIs that relate to safety of supply? Yeah, it's annoying to talk about CPTSD, but it's important to look at what financial values mean and what has to happen in order to grow all these values. So how can we create advantages that have been en route for a long time? How we can say we can do it. We can make it with the caring business without destroying the planet. Then it's about technology, from products to processes. This is the crowd that should understand this best of all. How can we use smart grids, maybe combine the different products together, create safety, create stability from a very diverse energy supply structure? How can we get a circular economy and think it differently? How can we think about different monitoring models, different sharing models, and improve circularity of our economy? Instead of just sitting, how can we get access? And sharing cars is just the beginning here. And that's how we get into systemic thinking. That's how we get into reducing the pressure onto ecosystems, but also in geopolitical systems. And that's a revolution of rules. Politics and steering. No, it's about how we want to steer our society. How do subventions currently work? What does it make easy? What does it make hard? Many of the farmers say, oh, it's the area benefits that makes it hard for us to care for something we want to keep because it doesn't pay off in a system of benefits. And that's what policy making is about. And it's not about who would you vote for on Sunday. It's policymakers often ask the economists for advice, but they lose track of societal benefits. So if you manage to do that, then that makes you a good politician, and you will also benefit from that as well. And we can all join in there. Politics in a democracy is a delegated responsibility. And currently in the political sphere, it's really tough to act in this role. A media system that kind of does half-ass journalism, and it's all about who won, who got the most, or who took the most from the other. That doesn't help in reaching compromise. Personal attacks, online systems, where people aren't protected anymore, where the barrier of interaction between I represent a position of power and people want a threat to attack your family, the separation is removed. And this is not how we can do these jobs. In science, you need to add watchdogging. In technology, how do we visualize the distribution effects? How do we talk about it? These are very important questions. And that leads me to the next point, that is care about self-optimization. How do we talk about what things are about? How can I be a role model? How can I inspire others to also look left and right and not just care for themselves? How can I grow my values, but also what values grow? How can I manage to really establish sustainability as a principle of organization, as a system for work, as a system for bonuses? That takes us to rethinking all of the processes and systems that we have available to us. And that starts from language to processes and rules, which need to be transformed into an approach of sustainability so we can get a sustainable outcome. Which leads me to my final point. Don't let the people get you down that say, oh, everybody else does it this way. Why are you being different? What are you even trying for? Others are a very weird category. I think I can do it. I would join. All the studies, all the surveys confirm this. This is how we get to a kind of politics where they try to sort out whether people will go along. And I think that's why it's especially important today to stand up and take care for care, to contribute to communication, to make the society efficient and effective, and convince them that others are with them. So don't check out, check in. 2024 is the time, and the European elections coming up, the most important time of all. Thank you very much.